Creepy Lunger Tried to Follow Me Home by u/playful_nature2131. Yesterday, I popped into the little Tesco in my town as I was making something and I realized that I had no onions. Usually I wear a mask, but my nephew had left teeny chocolate handprints on my white mask, so it was in the washing machine. I'm fully vaccinated, so I didn't think that it would be an issue when I was literally grabbing onions and paying by card. Plus, masks are no longer compulsory here, and I'm just paranoid as I live with someone high risk. As I walk in, a guy who is probably a little shorter than me also walks in at the same time. He smiles and then says hi to me. I'm a smiley person and I will be friendly to anyone, so I say hi back, smile, and then walk on. He goes down the crisp and chocolate aisle and I head for ready meals and fetch. But out of the corner of my eye, I can see his head following me as I walk past. I know I'm a pretty girl, but I'm also relatively large, and while I do get attention from men, not usually so full on watching me go kind of thing. I thought nothing of it at that time. It was a little flattering, so I got my onions and then walked to the till. The man was stood directly in front of me, and no issue, until he turned around and smiled at me. I smiled back, then looked away. I kid you not, guys. He starts doing lunges, like actual lunges in front of me. Then, stretching his leg up behind his back and twisting his torso to look back at me. I am pretty uncomfortable at this point, so I'm avidly reading the wine rack. There's a wine called beefsteak wine, and I'm super confused. Well, I don't really drink, and I'm confused as to why it's called that. Is it a beef-flavored wine? Or is it specifically for beef and steak pairings? God, I hope it's the latter. And all the while, this guy is still lunging and twisting and trying to smile at me. Finally, the old dear in front has all her stuff in her granny trolley and then shuffles off. The man in front buys his cigarettes and chocolate bar and goes to stand by the front door. I'm feeling super uncomfortable at this point because he is literally staring at me while I buy my onions. I pay and go for the door again, avoiding eye contact and just acting like I'm in my own little world. But he doesn't seem to take the hint. He stops me at the door. He says, "Hi, I'm John Smith. Can I get your number?" I deadpan just say no and start walking to my car. I'm not sure what happened next, but a second later, an older gentleman with a West Highland Terrier has stopped in between us and said, "The girl said no. Leave her be." I thank the older man, avoiding the other guy's eyes, and go to my car. He ran to his van and gets in and waits. I just have a bad feeling at this point, so I drive out of the car park and go the opposite way to my house. Thinking back on it, it was probably a really stupid move of mine because I drove in the direction of nowhere. Like, the next town is 30 miles in the direction that I drove in, with a ton of small villages in between. The nearest building 9 miles away, and like I said, not smart at all. And just as my instinct said he would, John Smith starts to follow me. He is in his white van, and I'm in a little car, so the windy roads and random side lanes did come in handy. I ended up driving 17 miles out of my way in a giant semicircle to get home. He followed me for at least 8 of them before he lost me going up a large bendy hill that opens onto a blind crossroad. Just to ensure that I wasn't being paranoid, I'd take turns that make no sense and pretty much done a circle before driving onwards. It started out as semi-flirting thing in a supermarket, turned into me nearly killing us, both speeding round tight corners scared to stop. I honestly don't understand the entitlement of people that think that this kind of behavior is acceptable. I do have his number plate, and I'm probably going to report him to the police, to be honest. And I have the entire thing on dashcam. Crazy Beauty Queen Stalker by u/Throwawayglitterbomb. This is a long story as it's been over 5 years in the making. I've actually posted this story before, but there are some really good internet detectives here on Reddit, and they were able to figure out the ex-beauty queen's identity, and mine too. I don't really care if I give up my identity, but I didn't want it to be on my actual account, so I deleted it a while back. The catalyst for me to repost it today on a throwaway is that it's cathartic. Last week, yet another court date for ex-beauty queen stalker came and went. We'd been expecting things to proceed with her entering a plea of guilty or not guilty, but no such luck. All we got was another vague reason as to why she's not ready and a new court date issued months from now. There have been many court dates since she has been arrested, and it's been over 18 months since she's been arrested for her continued stalking and harassment, and she still wants to drag things on to seemingly try and stay relevant in our lives. Well, anyway, on to the story. To recap, my husband dated a beauty queen title holder of a well-known pageant before me, and they broke up long before we met. She was a statuesque blonde, very tall, a knockout in her day, in my opinion. And this is somewhat important to the story, I guess. But while she was a dazzling pageant winner on the outside, on the inside, oh boy, she could be charming and beautiful if she needed you. But mostly, she treated people around her terribly, including my husband, and he eventually broke it off with her. But she never went away. She would continue to call and email repeatedly, even after my husband and I met. If anything, her calls increased. She would call over and over again, day and night, even after my husband, then boyfriend, blocked her number. She would ask for money and then threaten to go to the police claiming that he abused her if he didn't give it to her. Well, he obviously didn't give her money, and this made her very upset. The threats increased and became more malicious, but when that didn't work, she would switch tactics and try and sweetly ask for help with certain projects as she was trying to get off the ground, with a promise that if he just did this one last thing for her, she would go away. He did not reply, so she would go back to being malicious, any tactic for attention or for what she really wanted, money. My husband was terrified because, of course, while he never did anything to her, it would be her word over his, and he was terrified of ruining his reputation and career. We unfortunately ended up at an event that she also attended. She had been waiting for us to arrive and had placed herself near the entrance of the event, and as we walked in, she stood across the room, looking me up and down, laughing and whispering into the ear of her date, making a point to try and make me uncomfortable. But that was okay. She was easily ignored until she ambushed me as I came out of the bathroom. She had been clearly waiting for a moment that I was alone, and she towered over me. She was very tall, and I had no intention of having it out with her. And as I hurriedly walked to find my husband, she kept paced beside me, hunched over so she was at my eye level and her head turned towards me. She was like a caricature of herself as she ambled beside me, smiling maniacally. "Where is your man?" she hissed in her heavy accent. Her eyes were black and she looked like out of a Tim Burton movie, hunched over with that crazy demonic smile. "Watch your back, pug," she added, grinning. She liked to call me names like Pug because I own pugs, and I guess she thought that this was an insult. What I didn't know then was while I was in the bathroom, she had walked over to my husband and had thrown her arm around him while he was in mid-conversation with someone, and introduced herself to the man he was talking to, as if she and my husband were together. My husband unwrapped himself from her clutches and told her to beat it. She then beelined and waited for me to come out of the washroom. We stopped going to the parties. The last time we ran into her was at a funeral for a mutual friend. She followed me around at the wake. As my husband was talking to the man's widow, I was talking to a friend and his wife. She walked right up and stood with us, joining us mid-conversation as if she were part of the group. It was unnerving, but also bizarre. It was a funeral, and I didn't want a scene, so I silently picked my wine glass off the bar and walked away, leaving her with a couple that I have been speaking to, and her staring at me with a smirk on her face. All in all, annoying, but manageable. However, the emails, calls, they never stopped. She would call my husband over and over, day and night, even though he had long blocked her number. She would drive by, and I found my car keyed one night after that I left it outside, but obviously I couldn't prove it's her. But enough was enough. But obviously I couldn't prove it was her. But enough was enough. My husband had a lawyer send a cease and desist. After the first, she called him from a private number. He answered and she said, "Hi, it's me," in a sing-song voice like they were the best of friends and that he hadn't just sent her a lawyer's letter ordering her to stay away from him and his family. He said nothing and hung up. Another cease and desist was sent, then a third, but nothing would make her go away. She did not actually think that my husband was capable of not wanting to be with her because, her beauty. Eventually, though, she got pissed that he was not giving in. So, she decided to take this rage onto the internet. I knew that she was absolutely checking out my social media, but I don't really use it as much, so I didn't care. However, she created a fake Twitter account and tweeted my husband's name, and then said that he was a fraud, and then tagged his colleagues, friends, investors, and even family members. Every single person she could think of to try and ruin his reputation and career. On New Year's Eve, she even posted on my Instagram account at exactly 12:01 a.m. "Happy New Year, Scrud." Social media settings were all put to private then. We went to the police armed with the emails threatening to give her money or she would go to the police. She was charged with 2 counts of harassment and a restraining order was put to place. To our shock, the next day after her arrest, Our phones were buzzing. This story had made front page news. Her day in court came right before COVID, and we arrived to the courthouse and sat down. She walked in, and we were shocked by her appearance. Actually, shocked is an understatement. She was unrecognizable from her former self. Gone was the statuesque dazzling blonde. She had apparently shaved her head and was wearing a short ratty brown wig. She had gained about 80 pounds and was now sort of hunched. With her height and new girth, she looked like a linebacker. She wore a bulky brown overcoat and a scarf tied over her wig like a babushka, and my immediate thought was, her outside now matches her inside. But it was her eyes that I noticed the most. About a year earlier, we had shown a photo of her to our kids so that if she ever approached them, they knew to run. At that time, my son, who was young, commented that she had mean eyes from the mouth of babes. Maybe it was that she had changed so much physically overall, but her dark eyes had narrowed into deep black slits. As she scanned the courtroom and saw us in court, she would turn around every so often to look back at us and glare. She would then whisper in her lawyer's ear and laugh as if she were having a grand time. She thought she was putting on a brave face and treating it all like a joke, but we were about to find out that getting arrested wouldn't slow her down. The restraining order didn't seem to faze her at all. If anything, it angered her more. From then on, every day, night and day, she would post from multiple fake social media accounts, posting photos of myself, of my husband. She would put up my husband's photo with a caption, pedophile, or other terrible names. She posted altered and unflattering photos of myself, and she called me old, ugly, and those are the G-rated ones. Listen, I'm no beauty queen myself. The name calling, while obsessive and gross, wasn't what bothered me most. Although, I'm not going to lie, seeing hundreds of photos of myself on her fake Twitter account, calling me ugly and obsessively pointing out every single perceived flaw, did succeed in getting me down at times. But why did I keep on looking? Because it was like getting a glimpse into her unraveled mind, just in case it was a clue of what she was capable or thinking of doing next. Because it wasn't her insults post that fazed me. What bothered me most were the sinister captions like, "Keep an eye on your kids, because I'd be watching," or "Why don't you plant some flowers in your front yard?" Or, "Be good to your kids because you never know what could happen." And, "How was your Uber Eats order?" She would post pictures of me with an arrow directed to my head, which I perceived to be a gun to my head. She posted pictures of my husband's workplace, which she was not allowed to be near, in accordance to the restraining order. But the police said that this could be just a picture she took from the internet. She posted Agatha Christie quotes like, "Every killer is usually someone you know well," or "Your end is near." Her Twitter profile banner picture was taken from a movie poster and said "Stalker" like she was in on the joke. We called the police again, but they said there wasn't anything they could do since she didn't explicitly tag us. I took screenshots of everything. Many of her posts were nonsensical, but most were photos posted of us on this fake account, all altered with derogatory or ominous captions. But we couldn't get her shut down. I became anxious anytime my kids were outside shooting hoops in the driveway. My elderly mother wouldn't take the baby out in the stroller because she was too scared. It affected all of our lives, and life became dramatic. Ex-beauty queen would taunt us with, "Catch me if you can." She posted close-ups of her dog's genitals or a piece of her dog's shit with my name beside it, and the implication is obvious. It bothered me she now had a dog, since I didn't think someone like her was capable of caring for anything living. Then, the calls started back up, this time to our home line. Yes, we still have a home phone. She would call and say, "Bitch," and then hang up. Or, "Karma will get you." And then weird chant-like calls as if she was reciting a spell. And sure enough, she posted photos of a pentagram and candles as some sort of altar and the caption, "Ring ring." Finally, the police asked us to come in and give video statements. We gave them a drive containing thousands of screenshots of posts that she had made, and they arrested her again and charged her with 2 more accounts of criminal harassment. My husband was angry at this point, but as Mama Bear, I just wanted this to get over with. She mentioned the kids frequently and ominously many times in her online rants, also calling them rude names, which I won't repeat here because these are the things that upset me most. The judge also issued a social media ban for her. By the time that she was rearrested for the second time, her fake Twitter account, which was literally mostly insults or references to my family, had 16,000 tweets in a 3-month period. She has no followers, so they were just to herself. The porn sites that I had been continuously tagged on stopped, and things quieted down tremendously. But I still get follower requests that I believe are her. But at this point, we were all on edge. I kid you not, I felt weird walking into my kitchen at night to make a sandwich, feeling creeped out that she was outside watching. And I put nothing past her, as nothing is more dangerous than a desperate woman who has nothing to lose. Which, by the way, was one of the quotes that she posted. I don't know what is wrong with her. I believe, from what I've researched, she's a malignant narcissist. Perhaps some other mental issues are at play here, but I can say that she was a terrible person long before she decided to try and make our lives miserable. Crazy beauty queen turned stalker. I would love nothing more than to never meet again, but if going to court helps you stay away from us forever, then bring it. As an aside, I wanted to mention that we heard from a reliable source that after my husband broke up with her, she allegedly became known to the police for other reasons. While my husband dodged the bullet regarding her threats to go to the police saying he abused her, apparently, other men have not been so lucky. I'm going to abstain from giving too much information because this stalker scares the shit out of me. Thankfully, he doesn't read English, so I hope that he will never find this post. Years ago, I moved to follow my boyfriend and to do a PhD in his country. I won't name the place, but it's an across-the-ocean type of deal. At first, I was very excited. It was a wonderful adventure. Until it wasn't. It's hard to describe the complexity of what I felt. I felt alone, misunderstood, far from my family and friends. And even though my boyfriend is wonderful, I really felt the weight of not finding any human connection. This could explain why I acted so weird and disconnected from reality in the following story. I'm also a very naive woman, and I like to see the best in people around me. This has been problematic more than a few times, but this story may be the worst example of where this candid attitude got me. My boyfriend and I are into BDSM. We do it alone and on our own, and we don't really participate in any events or anything. I do have an account on a known BDSM website. I go there to find new ideas for our sessions, and I sometimes, but rarely, post pictures. No face, no tattoos, and I often wear wigs. I get contacted by interested doms once in a while, even though I clearly state that I'm not free. Usually they send copy-paste messages, so I just ignore them. But once in a while though, I'd get a more personal message and make an effort to answer that I'm not interested and that I'm in a relationship. This is how my discussion with Nick started. He didn't approach me with a, "Hey, will you be my sub?" but with curiosity about how I got into BDSM, stating he was quite new to the domain and that he was interested in understanding the way of life. So I gladly explained. Explanations turned into discussions, and he told me he was in the police and that he investigated drug cartels. He also told me that he was married and that he had kids. We had a lot of hobbies in common, and I mean a lot. I won't go into details about those hobbies, but they're kind of specific. Feeling very lonely, combined with the fact that I felt that I could trust him because he was married and had kids, I accepted his invitation to start texting on WhatsApp. I want to be clear, my boyfriend knew about this from day one. Plus, we had been talking on this website for almost 3 months before switching to WhatsApp. He was very friendly and interested by my day-to-day life. He'd share pictures of his kids and of investigations that he was working on. This went on for another 3 months. Then one day, he told me that he had to interview a suspect close to the town where I lived and asked if we could meet for coffee. I agreed, and we met for the first time. Before anyone panics, my boyfriend was hiking with friends for a few weeks. I texted him, but he didn't have signal. Plus, we have a very trusting relationship. He has a lot of girlfriends, and back in my country, I hung out with a lot of boys. So this isn't weird for us. Now, back to the first encounter. It felt as if we had known each other for years. We had a great time from the beginning, and I was so happy that I'd found a friend far from my own country. He knew that I loved reading thrillers and enjoyed murder investigation videos, so he showed me his gear, handcuffs, sampling kits for small investigations, other restraints, and etc. It didn't feel weird at the moment, but afterwards, I kind of understood that this could have been a way for him to show off what he could do. However, as the night went on, after grabbing drinks from a nearby bar, he forced me against a wall and kissed me. I was shocked, really, and I barely managed to push him off me. I told him that it was inappropriate, that he was married, and that I was in a relationship, and he was really sorry and felt ashamed. He told me that he felt there was something between us, and I was like, "Yeah, it's called friendship." I was really disappointed, and then we parted ways. Days later, after he apologized over and over again, he called me to meet up. He wanted to take me for a ride in his hometown, It's a really pretty place, and he's got a bike, and he wants me to enjoy the scenery in this country that I barely know. So I agree. It's his hometown. He works there, and he lives there with his wife and kids. Surely I'll be safe. In short, I wasn't. Again, he kissed me, tried to push for more in the middle of a park where he brought his children to play on weekends. So I told him to bring me back to the bus station so that I could leave. He did, and then proceeded to tell me a story about how he had recently got a drug seller out of hiding by modifying text messages sent by his girlfriend. He basically made me believe that she was cheating on him to get him to confront her, and then arrested him. I don't know if it's true, and I don't know if it's possible, but due to what had just happened, what I heard was, "I can make your boyfriend believe that you're cheating on him." And my boyfriend was still on his hike by that time. We did talk once every few days, and I told him everything from the moment that he had some cell signal. Meanwhile, I was confronting Nick about that. His behavior was really strange. He went from, "I'm sorry, I think I'm in love with you," to, "If you tell the cops, who do you think they'll believe? Their colleague or an immigrant?" I got scared, and I tried to cool things down with him. I just felt he could go crazy at any moment. He clearly wasn't used to girls refusing him. And at that point, I thought it would be safer for me and my boyfriend to maintain contact with Nick, albeit with less enthusiasm than before. But after understanding how obsessed he was, I blocked him from all platforms where I knew he had an account. But he found me. He sent me my address, asking if I loved living in that particular part of town. I never gave him my address. Well, I guess he could pull some strings at the station to get my info. He even came to visit me at my job. I was so scared, and I just played it as if everything was okay. I told him that my boyfriend wanted me to cut ties with him because he was angry about what had happened, which was true, but I also wanted him out of my life. I didn't know how he would react if I told him, however. Nick insisted that I loved him, that I could be his mistress, and that my boyfriend didn't have to know. He was obsessed by me, and he didn't hide it anymore. He told me how he wanted to fuck me, and how we'd be a great couple, how he'd father our kids, and he went from "I'll be husband material" to serial rapist in a matter of seconds. I refused, again and again, blocking him, changing my accounts, and many more, and I got scared when I got calls from unknown numbers. I was terrified when I saw anyone slowing down on a motorcycle close to my apartment. I was wary of going outside and going to my job. The quarantine was welcome for me, really, and I didn't get any news from him for months. And then I broke my cell phone. I knew I could transfer all of my numbers from one phone to the other, but I didn't know it would unblock previously blocked numbers. Days later, I got a message from him. He told me that he had divorced his wife and that he had still loved me and that he wanted to marry me. He apologized for making me believe that I was only mistress material and that I was worth so much more. He said that my boyfriend didn't love me and that I deserved better and that he was waiting for me. When he saw that I saw his message, he said, "Finally, I thought you'd never unblock me." Does this mean that he had been sending this message over and over again in hopes that I'd finally see it? That narcissistic man used all the manipulation tactics he knew. He had told me before we met in person how he had learned those skills to toy with criminals, to have them tell the truth and admit to crimes. Well, fortunately, I had dated manipulative men before and knew the signs. Basically, he wasn't used to not getting what he wanted. He was attractive, rich, interesting, and he knew that. I blocked him again, and we moved a few months later. I just hope that he doesn't get his hand on this information. I believe Nick's last move was trying to hack into my Instagram, as I got a notification that someone from his hometown had tried to connect to my account. So, obsessive cop who chased me for over a year, let's never meet again. Tonight, my kid got an invite to go to a friend's house. We live in the burbs, but there's still a lot of farmland and rural houses in driving distance. This friend lives pretty far out into the farm country at the far edge of the school district, so not a lot out there. I never drive fast, but I drive especially slow on the back roads in the country for a lot of reasons, but that was especially true tonight. It was pouring rain and getting dark, visibility was poor, and I had no idea where the hell I was. Because I drive so slow, I'm used to cars piling up behind me, so I pull over a lot to let people pass. So tonight, I dropped him off and started back home. Not long after I left their house, I noticed this beat-up white car behind me tailing me. Cars tailing me is nothing new, but the weird thing is there was plenty of room to pass, but they never did. At some point, I decided to pull over into a driveway and let them pass because clearly I was driving slower than they wanted to go. The driver was a male, the passenger was female, and they stared me down as they passed, like craning their necks kind of thing. After they passed, I started on my way again. I passed through a little town, and I mean like a handful of houses, a couple of very small stores, and maybe a gas station. Then it was farmland again. After I passed the town, I looked back and noticed the exact same beat-up white car tailgating me again. That same fucking car must have pulled over somewhere in the town and waited for me to drive through so that they could get behind me again. I pulled over a second time down the road because by now, it was raining harder and I didn't even feel comfortable going 45, so I had like 5 cars behind me that time. And I was also kinda hoping to lose them. I didn't see where they pulled over the second time, as I was getting ready to enter the city limits. I noticed them behind me again. The first time creeped me out, but there was still an outside chance that they just happened to pull over for mundane reasons that had nothing to do with me. You know, like answering a text or etc. But there is no way that it happened twice. They were following me. And now I'm panicking. I don't want to lead them to my house, so I went to the grocery store. Hindsight 2020, I should have parked in front of the police station, but the closest very public place was the grocery store. There were cameras and a ton of people, and it's very well lit even at night. I parked in the spot closest to the door so that I could dash in if I needed to. I locked my doors and just sat there. They circled the lot a couple of times, and I lost sight of them after that. I assumed that they left, and I drove around the parking lot a couple times, but didn't see them, so I went home. I am so creeped out. Hello everyone, it's your creepy sister here. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really appreciate each and every one of you. But I would also like to thank my amazing patrons. my top tippers, and my dearest channel members. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it with all of my heart. If you want to support the channel further, you could also choose to become a patron, a tipper, or a channel member. But remember, it's appreciated, but never a requirement. I would also like to announce that we have merch now. The link is in the description of the video, along with all my other social media links, like my Discord server, Twitter, Instagram, and others. You can connect with me and send your stories there. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and comments are highly appreciated. And remember, your fear feeds me.